It's the pop-up show.
It's a pop-up show.
It's the pop-up show.
Pop, pop, pop.
It's the pop-up show.
Pop, pop, pop. Show.
It's the pop-up show.
Something's happening, something going on.
Ttnl back live to get it on.
$7 a month, don't need a coupon.
We worldwide, the flags waving strong.
So rise in your paging with breaking news.
Bring a whole lot of truth, no pay-per-views.
Could be called Shane or DDB.
Just another branch on this family tree.
The tape never lies like a boy JC.
No narratives allow how we rock the beat.
Breaking news on time, now we ain't no bullets.
Jealous networks make us out to be villains.
Unbreakable truths like a man Bruce Willis.
We stand tall in the city like the Willis.
Tower, over the competition we devour.
Grants every time like the slide on Bears Hour.
Others fall asleep when the apple is big. We're taking out the frauds who here to Great Britain. You can't run that eye for the who are you shin. Patrons of the truth, this network spin.
Old man reporting live from the dungeons. We keep it real, tears from chopping onions. Bears Nation on the rise, be on the coverage. Hot off the press, hot fresh out the oven. It's the pop-up show.
Pop, pop.
It's the pop-up show.
Pop, pop, pop.
It's the pop-up show.
The pop-up.
It's the pop-up show.
Pop.
It's the pop-up show.
Pop, pop.
It's the pop-up show.
What?
It's the pop-up show.
Pop, pop, pop.
It's the pop-up show.
Ttnl.
Breaking news. The tape never lies. Network breaking news.
Hey, it's the pop-up show.
Weird.
We're back, and we have some breaking Bears news. As I'm sure if you're here, you know by now, the Chicago Bears have acquired defensive end Montez Sweat from the Washington Commanders. The report is it's a 2024 second rounder, and I'm sure there's going to be lots and lots of people that are upset about that. But I think, depending on the Jaylen Johnson deal, how that plays out, you could potentially be replacing that second rounder, and you have those two first. So this story hasn't been written yet. It's going to come down to, I'm sure they're talking already, and I wouldn't be shocked to see a long-term extension ironed out here in the next couple of hours, Cars. I don't know how you feel about it, but what say you?
What is our biggest need on defense?
Oh, yeah.
Pass rush. Where is this next draft the weakest? By far, pass rush. Where is it weak in free agency? Yeah, it is, because you were going to be trying to sign one of these two guys, and it looks like that Washington has chosen, the other guy is being the person. So I understand that the second round is a high pick, but one, I think it shows you that they feel that they're closer than they've looked, not to being a playoff team, but to being more of a middle of the pack team. And two, you're not going to draft someone in a pass rushing role in the first round next year. And in the second round, you're hoping to get someone that's lightning in a bottle, because you don't find these great pass rushers often at the second round.
Yeah, and I understand the apprehension. I don't think that this is the Chase Claypool deal. I know when it went down last year, I was on record. I understood the deal, but I said when it happened I wouldn't have made the Chase Claypool, and I think everybody's going to automatically default to that. And I do understand the other side of the fence when you're talking about giving up a premium pick, and along with that, you paid a premium pick to pay a guy a premium contract. But the benefit of that is, and like you said, Cars, Bears aren't the only team with money available. We've seen stupid money thrown around. The defensive tackle that was in Philly, nobody expected him to end up in San Francisco.
And there's been a massive disappointment.
Yeah, absolutely.
As well, right?
Absolutely. And that's the thing. So you're pushing your chips into the middle of the table, and where this is different from Chase Claypool. Chase Claypool wasn't a free agent with a handful of games left, or 9 games left, whatever it may be. So Montez Sweat is going to be a Chicago Bear in 2024.
Well,
we can bet on that.
And he's more proven consistently than Chase Claypool was. Claypool, you were still betting on ceiling, right? You were still betting that he could go back to being that guy that he was, the first year. You're talking about with Sweat, who outside of 2021, when he missed a handful of games, has been a 7+ sack guy. And he is a complete defensive end. Like, he is one of the better. He's a very good pass rusher, but he's also one of the better run defending defensive ends as well. So he's a complete player. So it's not the same at all. After everybody already overreacted over the Jaylen Johnson news this morning, and now are going to have to walk that back with all the reports coming in of how much money he wants and that other folks aren't willing to pay it whatsoever. It's a move you make 10 times out of 10. Pass rushers do not become available. And thankfully for Washington, overpaying Daron Payne, who has all of 1 sack this year, may I add, and Jonathan Allen, we get to take advantage of the situation. So for a guy who's 27 years old, I think it just turned 27, I feel like it's what you have to do at this point in time. And it was the right move. And I'm very glad that they made it.
And, on top of that, Cars, I think what we're also kind of are looking at, it frees up Yannick Ngakoue maybe.
Yes.
Starts giving you more options on that. I think Montez Sweat is a guy that's going to command a double team eventually, because he's consistent enough. He's consistent enough throughout his career that he's going to get you maybe 7 to 10 sacks, right? He's already at 6.5. That's already well more than half of what your team's production is now. So I imagine it to get better. I mean, it was a glaring need throughout this entire season, through last season too. And we thought Yannick was going to do, help. We thought Walker was going to help, but it just doesn't seem to fit. I feel like if you put this guy here, I really feel like he's going to take a next step, and maybe in his career, but he's going to help other guys on this defensive line become better as well, especially the younger guys that we have in Dexter and in who am I forgetting?
Pickens.
Yeah, Pickens. Yeah. Thank you, Pickens.
No, but I'm glad that you brought up Walker, because I think that's the best thing, because what we wanted from Walker this year is who Montez Sweat is overall. That's who he is as a player. And everybody is sitting here saying, some really great points of, now when you get into that third down package, you're moving Walker inside at the 3T.
Thank God. Cars, he's not an end. We banged the table for it.
He had to be, because Dominique Robinson. Yeah, no, I know you know this.
I get it.
Because Dominique Robinson hasn't worked out, because, Ngakoue has actually not been bad, but he just hasn't made the impact because he's been the guy. Right? Like, it's a lot easier to take that focus away from. Now, when you have 2 legit ends, it's going to help everything. And I'm sitting here excited about the opportunity of Ngakoue, Sweat, Walker, and to me, Dexter, when you're getting into third down passing situations and just unleashing that, because Sweat is incredibly strong at the point of attack. Dexter has shown to be extremely strong at the point of attack. You now have a lot more versatility in that line that we didn't have before. This is as close to a home run deal as you can get, because again, need and where this draft and free agency are weak. You basically had to do this.
There's potential if you moved one of your first round picks and traded down on draft day. You're talking about, listen, I'm an Alabama guy. Then you're talking about Dallas Turner and hitching everything to that. And that's a big issue. But I know there's Cars. How would you address Tom he thinks that the value of the draft pick is way too high for you to.
So Tom, we love second round picks more than anything. But where is the single biggest need on this franchise right now, especially on defense? It's pass rush. It's absolutely pass rush. This is the worst draft in a long time for pass rush. So no, you cannot say that it's overvalued for a guy that is consistently getting 8 sacks a season, basically. That's what you hope for someone to get inside the second round. And it just doesn't happen. Like Harold Landry is probably the last good guy that went in the second round. And Harold Landry only went that way because of his back issues and spine issues that he had. And he had one great year, right, where he was looking like the person. And that was in 2021. He didn't play at all last season, has yet to get, he's playing pretty good this season. He's got 4 sacks this season. But you're basically taking your biggest need off the table with a draft pick for a player that would not be good as Montez Sweat coming in. So no, it's not. It's a premium position.
And to be honest, and he's consistently on the field. I mean, if you look at it from 19 when he came in, played all 16, 20, played all 16, 21, only 10 games, but he started 10 and I believe he got hurt. And then you look at last year, played all 17 games. He's consistently on the field. And, if he's still young, right? 5th year, he's a veteran, but he's still relatively young. If you could go ahead and mix him in with these younger guys, I feel like that's the perfect mix to get this line going. But it's time will tell. Time will tell. I really love this pick, though, because the Bears were just drowning when it came to pass rush.
I mean, that dude, just so everybody knows, last year on that defensive line, Sweat played 70% of the available defensive snaps. This year, he's playing 70% of the available defensive snaps. So to your point, Ivan, he's a guy that's just constantly on the field making things happen. And you can't put a value on that. He's just not a situational pass rusher. He's a true third down guy.
Right. And I think what fans fall into, and listen, I say that with a grain of salt because I'm a fan too, obviously, but I think the trap that people fall into is I always refer to Kevin White. When the Bears drafted Kevin White, everybody at that point expected Kevin White to be our wide receiver 1 in 2023 at this point. The position is fixed. We don't have any questions. He's going to be the guy. He's going to be here. The second round pick has value if you hit on it, obviously. But that's where the poker game comes in. And when you have $110 million at your disposal, and I mean, Cars, what are we looking at for Montez Sweat in an extension? Like 18 to 20?
I would say it'd be somewhere in the 14 to 20 range.
14 to 20. So just even right in that range, you put him on the open market with 31 other teams.
That's going to be a 22-20. It's going to be the guy who went to Denver from Seattle, DeMarcus.
The
DeMonte.
Yeah, it's I know.
Draymond Jones. Draymond Jones. Thank you.
Right.
And we remember we're going to go ahead and get this guy, and it's going to be great. And he signed for, I think, let me look this up again. But I mean, if Draymond Jones is the person that is kind of the biggest he went for a 3-year, $51 million deal, and Draymond Jones is nowhere near the player that Montez Sweat is. And again, if he makes it to free agency, you overpay in free agency.
100%. And Tom's point here is, Tom, these guys just didn't talk today. Let's be honest.
They've been talking for weeks.
They've been talking. And don't forget the Khalil Mack deal. When you made that, I can still remember I was texting Cars at like 6 o'clock in the morning. I'm like, bro, are you watching? They're saying that the Bears are trying to acquire Khalil Mack. And then I believe it was in Cars 3 or 4 hours after the deal was announced
that the extension was done.
And that was a market setting deal. So, I mean, it was in a different stratosphere than what we're talking now. Honestly, the financials, and I know I should have highlighted it. Somebody in the chat said, well, does Montez Sweat want to play here? Guys, players want to get paid. Number one, number two, number three.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead.
Sorry, but at the same point, part of this trade negotiation is you talk to the agent,
100%.
You set your terms, and you make sure that the terms are acceptable to him. It'll be like, hey, if we trade for you, would you sign XYZ of a contract? What are you looking for? All of these conversations have happened because you don't make this move for a second-round pick on a guy who's about to be a free agent without it. This is not Chase Claypool, who had one more year under contract. This is a guy who they are going to have this conversation already. So yeah, if he won't agree, it's a third, right? It moves down a pick, but because he's willing to do an extension, he's going to be here, and you're going to see it very quickly.
They already, I would be willing to bet, have the parameters of the deal locked in place, but they cannot do any of that until Montez flies to Hallis Hall. They're going to put him through a physical. They're going to make sure that everything, all the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed. And then somewhere around 6 or 7 p.m. tonight, or maybe even into tomorrow, you'll hear the terms of the contract extension. Cars is 100% right. And Ivan, I know you agree with this too. If Montez Sweat and his people say, hey, we understand you own our rights now, but we have no intention of agreeing to a long-term contract in Chicago, then the trade simply isn't consummated. It's that simple.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't go through with it at all. But if it does go through, and I think it will, I think it will, because you're not making this trade unless, like Carr says, unless you've been talking through it, and unless you have at least somewhat of an understanding on what each side stands, right? So if I go ahead and see Montez Sweat and talk to his agent, and we start talking through this, there already should have been some good faith established. So I wouldn't imagine there be any type of you screwed up again, Ryan Poles situation, because God, that would just be terrible. So I'm sure with the guidance of a Kevin Warren, there was, the T's were crossed, the I's were dotted, and you're going to go through with this because you have some type of good faith understanding with Montez Sweat and his people. But for me, if he does pass his physical, do you think he starts Sunday?
He's playing.
Oh, hell yeah.
Yeah,
Today's Tuesday. Yeah, listen, you want to know the game plan for a pass rusher? See quarterback, get quarterback.
Yeah.
That's
and you make this move because, listen, you've got, in the next 5 games, you've got 2 games against Detroit. But you also have New Orleans, Carolina, and now a deflated and defeated Minnesota Vikings team. You have your bye in between. Then you go on to Cleveland, Arizona, Atlanta, Green Bay. I think we talked about it a little bit this week, but the defense needed more pass rush. I think the game on Sunday got out of hand because we didn't have much of a pass rush, and because we, again, refused to blitz and other things that we'll talk about ad nauseum. But if you all of a sudden look at this schedule and it goes New Orleans, Carolina, Detroit, Minnesota, bye, Detroit, Cleveland, Arizona, Atlanta, Green Bay.
right.
You're with a good pass rusher, winning 5 games in those is not that far off, because these teams are not that good. And so all of a sudden, if you're talking about a 7-10 football team or something like that, yeah, I understand that this pick could be 35th, 36th, whatever it's going to be. But it could also sit down and be 42nd, and you'd still be left with this hole at pass rusher. You're going to have to people who keep saying like, you're going to have to pay him. I'd rather just pay him. I'd rather just pay him. You're going to pay more and you might miss him. The only way to make sure that you get your pass rush, the only way right now to be absolutely certain that you get a guy to rush the passer is to trade for him. That's it. And if you don't do this, people are going to sit down and complaining like, why don't we do anything? So we just sit here and we complain, oh, they're looking to trade Jaylen Johnson. They don't care about anybody. Oh, God, they gave up way too much of a thing for a pass. I'm unhappy. We're unhappy. I get it. The team sucks, but this is a great move.
So defensive ends at the NFL Combine, people love numbers. Montez Sweat set the record at the NFL Combine for speed for a defensive end at a 4.41. And when you watch the Chicago Bears and Cars, we've been talking about this for years. It's glaring. And I know it's a little bit overrated when you're talking about a pass rusher, but I'm talking about team speed in general. Just look at it it is glaring when you're watching special teams on kickoff and punts. The team speed overall is abysmal for the Chicago Bears. This is a part of it. Now, depending on where we are with Tremaine Edmonds' knee and how they're going to progress with him, this is making your linebackers. And why do you think Jaquan Brisker, did one of these as soon as the deal was announced? That makes everybody behind Montez Sweat, if he plays well, it makes their job easier. You have a guy, I think you brought it up, Ivan, with Ngakoue. It makes his life easier. It just gives you a legitimate professional defensive end who we do not have on the roster other than Ngakoue. And let's be honest, he was available for a long time for a reason, because he's a piece to a team. He's not a foundational piece. But I understand and I get it, because you are not finding Montez Sweat in round 2 of this draft unless you get lucky. And it is what it is. And now it prevents you from overpaying at the top end of the draft. Like I said, Dallas Turner, I'm an Alabama fan. I've watched everything. He's a good player. Would I be happy if the Bears drafted him in the top 10? I'd be sick to my stomach. I would be.
It forces you to reach for need consistently. Consistently, you have to reach for need. And we've been doing this for so long. Kevin White was a reach for a need position, right? These are the things that we're trying to get out and do. And, listen, we sometimes really get caught up again on these second round picks and their values and who's really good and where it is. I get it. There's a lot of misses all throughout. And I think in this instance, a round 2 type person might be a tight end of a different skill set or something like that. But it's, again, not a great draft.
A center.
Not a great draft for those type of things. So when you look at it, but it's easy to get freaked out. And for every, Sam Laporta, there is a Jonathan Mingo. For every Porter, there's a Musgrave or others that are just not doing it. It's still a hit or miss thing every round that you draft. So getting someone that can perform and do some things that help, that you're not waiting 9 more games to get this help. You're getting this
So
week.
real quick, just here's a little bit of an update so everybody knows, because Cars, you and I brought this up a few weeks ago when I was essentially saying, would you do Jaylen Johnson for Chase Young? And we kind of went down that avenue. But Ian Rappaport is reporting that the Bears were in talks with Chase Young as part of the trade conversation. Young is 24, 3 years younger than Sweat is at 27. So they were obviously, as they should have been, interested in both. And I'll be honest, if you go back, if you're a Ttnl fan and you watch all of our content, you can go back to the Cars Keys where I talk about it. Cars, you brought it up. You said Montez Sweat. And I'm like, Cars, I think if they had their druthers, I think that they would rather keep Sweat, and they weren't, based on injury history and everything like that with Chase Young, I thought that was going to be more of a gamble for Washington and that they would sit with Sweat. But now we know. And I mean that the NFL and fans and everybody, they love young players. And we'd be doing the same show if it was Chase Young and not Montez Sweat. I get it. But I honestly, keeping everything 100 here, I didn't think that Montez Sweat was going to be the guy that Washington moved on from. I fully expected it to be Chase Young.
Well, and I think, though, there were reports, I think it was Gabriel that said, like, the Bears cannot get enough access to Chase Young's medicals.
Yep.
Right? Like, the medicals were have to be a concern at this point. But if you look at this, like, I'm just going to read you off the names next year of who is going to be free agents in the defensive end. Leonard Williams, Carl Lawson, Marcus Davenport, Romeo Okwara, Ngakwe, Danico Audrey, Kalis Campbell, Charles Harris, Dorrance Armstrong, Justin Houston. That move anything for anybody here at all? No, it doesn't.
Right.
It doesn't. So,
real quick, because Cars was talking about the value of, and I totally appreciate the value of draft picks, and I understand where people can get kind of frustrated because we've been a little lackadaisical with them in recent memory. Sure. But the value of consistency here, right at this time, is way more important than what could be and the unknown. Because he's doing it right here, right now. 6.5, like I said, he would be our leading sack. He would be our sack leader right now on the team if he started with us from game one. So it's something to be said about consistency over the unknown.
I think in all seriousness, this year that he's having would be the sack leader for the last 2 years for the Bears, right? Like, his 6.5 sacks this season is more than any Bear player has put in over the last 25 games. So what he's done in 8, nobody has done in 25 for us. Put that into perspective, right? Like, hey, we did 20 sacks last year. We've done 10 this year. So we have a total of 30, and Sweat himself has done 14, I feel like, the last 2 years or something like that. Like, that's, if one man has done half or more than half your sack totals, that's pretty much worth it.
Yeah, I mean, Brad Biggs is sending out a tweet now, just obviously stating the obvious about the Bears working on a extension with Montez Sweat. And as he said, if for whatever reason they didn't agree to a contract extension, you have the tag available. But I mean, I would be absolutely floored if we're not hearing about a contract extension for Montez Sweat and the Chicago Bears in pretty short order after his physical and everything like that is checked out. I mean, Cars, you would 100% agree there. You'd be pretty shocked if this went into the NFL offseason and the Bears ended up having to put the franchise tag on him.
Oh yeah, no, I don't think that's again. I think all of this is done because I think we have figured that out. And I did just look. So our leading sacker for the last 2 seasons is either Jaquan Brisker at 4 or Justin Jones at 4. Yeah. Sweat has 6.5 this season. Yeah. So that's a big
Facebook user, head over to StreamYard.com/Facebook. I don't know who we're talking to, and I don't know why you need a StreamYard link because you're not invited on this show anyway. So it sucks to be you. Happy Tuesday.
And Tom, he's helping him this season. Guess who has not played for the last basically 2 years?
Yeah, Chase Young.
So Montez Sweat has also been doing it without him. So I understand this concern, but Chase Young has not played pretty much for 2 seasons, and he kept performing. So I think we're, again, Daron Payne had 1 good year, his last year in a contract year, is now sitting at 1 sack through 8 games and is not the same player. Montez has gotten better. So I think I think we're so conditioned to think every move we make is Chase Claypool all over again that when something good happens, we kind of look past it.
Yeah, and again, and this is a piece too where Jamal brings up that's 100% a focus. And like I said, you depending on how this goes, it's not a viable option for, let's just say, Justin Simmons to get traded now with the way that his contract is. But can things change for Tennessee? You know what I mean? There's going to be guys out there. I don't think there's going to be a guy at the top of the draft at 3 tech. They're going to have to be pretty creative with how they
It's
do
going
that.
to be Dexter. Like Dexter is the guy.
But they still need to. They still need to bring in.
Depth.
They still need to bring in a body. But I mean, even if that wouldn't prevent. I mean, if Simmons was available,
you're making that move all day, any day,
100%. Yeah. So it's gonna be interesting. But this, I love the way that this is going because I'm a forward thinking guy, but how this first round unfolds. I mean, the NFL offseason is obviously very exciting anyway, but what is going to unfold with the Chicago Bears at quarterback, if they're sitting at number 2 and number 3, how this unfolds, Marvin Harrison Jr., offensive lineman, quarterback. Man, we thought last offseason was exciting and a roller coaster ride. This one's going to be amped up a few levels, that's for sure. But they've begun to address pass rusher, and it's barren. I mean, did Justin Herbert have anything? Yeah, he got pulverized the one time by TJ Edwards, but other than that, he was clean.
I think 2 times, 2 sacks.
Was it 2? Yeah. But you get my point. Not enough.
Right.
Not enough.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And let's see. But yeah, let's get him in here.
Can I EJ Snyder actually had a very interesting stat and we know how I love about stats, but Bears are 28th in total pressures with 125, right? So 125 pressures across 8 games. You're talking 14, 15 a game. Montez Sweat is 26th in the NFL at QB pressures with 31. If you just take Sweats and add them to the Bears numbers, Bears move from 28th to 12th in QB pressures. So yeah, that makes a difference, right? And if you've invested all the picks that you have in the defensive backfield like we have, the way to make them look better is to make them not have to cover as long.
Right. More and more coming in here. Albert Breer. Chicago and Washington had extensive trade talks on defensive end Chase Young. Montez Sweat wound up making more sense as the trade piece for a number of reasons. So the Bears get a pass rusher who's better than anything that you'll find out there in free agency in March. And again, that's essentially echoing what you said here, Cars and Ivan and myself. So listen, it's a risk. Now you have him. Now Montez Sweat. Now it's time to go quarterback hunting.
Mm-hmm.
That's the thing. The Chase Claypool wasn't super in love with the deal when it went down, but I have more faith in this because it's Chase Claypool. You just looking back, and there was questions there. Even Cars, we brought it up when he was being drafted. The love of the game and the being able to digest the playbook. And if you think that that's not an issue in Miami, watch the play that he blew up in Miami this past weekend. They got Tua almost full, or definitely folded in half, and he missed a blocking assignment or just was disinterested. This is a guy that's going to come in here. Now you got a clear head dude now on that defensive line with Montez Sweat.
And I agree. And I think Field Yates, has it best summed where he's like, it's just a win-win, right? The Commanders get draft capital for a guy that they were probably going to have to let go. And the Bears get what he says is a stud pass rusher that is better than anyone they draft early in the second round, assuming he's eventually extended, which we all expect. They get better at a major area of a need now and going forward. So they got better for this year and for next and the other. And I think this is a great question, but I think it's really because Chase is the second pick in a draft. When healthy, he is a absolute force. But you don't want to, and you're seeing him do really well rushing the passer this year as well. I think you just bet he's 24 versus 27, second pick versus 26. There's a couple of different factors in it for them. And we'll just see how it goes.
I'm just reading some. I don't know. I don't think you talked about this one, Cars. It says since 2020, Montez Sweat's 90.5 run defense grade is the top among all edge defenders in the NFL since 2020. Yeah.
I mean, he is just an all around great guy. He is putting together massive seasons. He had an incredible year last year. When you look at what he did across the board. And that, again, was a year without Chase Young. He's a guy whose play elevated, and I think to some degree also helped Daron Payne's play accelerate last year, and it took a lot of pressure off of him. It's a lot of these pass rushers come in like an Ngakoue, where they're really good at rushing the passer, but they're not so good at some of the other places, right? Ngakoue's a problem in the run game. To get someone that is that well-rounded and is going to give you that type of action, that's phenomenal. And I think we're so conditioned as Bears fans that every move we make is going to be a failure, that we just basically cannot enjoy it at this time.
I think that he's going to be involved. Like, how involved, right? Like, how involved is really the question, right?
You're not making this trade, and he's finding out about it on Twitter. I'll tell you that.
Exactly. So Ryan Poles had to have gone and consulted with a Kevin Warren, and honestly, Kevin Warren had to have seen it on the field when he was there on Sunday night. So it's glaring. So I think, I would say that he was involved to an extent. I don't think he was the guy saying, all right, we're going to pull the trigger, but I think he was consulted. That's for sure. Yeah.
And one way that I know this is a good trade is everybody's heard me talk about my family being Philadelphia Eagles fans. And my phone is currently blowing up saying, thank you for getting him out of our division so we don't have to face him anymore. Because he's been a problem for Philly. So there you go. That should make you feel a little bit better, at least.
If you're upset, just go back and watch the game he had against us. Just go watch it. You want to see some of these games. He's just a guy who consistently shows up all over the place. Like, you look.
Breaking news. The Tape Never Lies Network. Breaking news.
Breaking news in here. The Chicago Bulls have picked up the third-year option on Dalen Terry, Cars, but go ahead with what you're saying.
Oh, my fucking God. He's just a dude that...
Sorry.
I hate you all so much. He's just one of the better ends. I don't understand why people are sitting here getting upset. Like, he's a guy who forces fumbles a lot, right? He gets to the quarterback. He rushes the quarterback. He gets a lot of QB hits outside of just the sacks. He's a massive framed guy. He's good in both run and pass. And we're going to sit here and complain that it's a second-round pick. If those of you who ever watched Family Guy, there's an episode where they all sit down and go watch a timeshare thing. And in the end, if they sit through it,
timeshare,
they can get a boat. They could get a boat, or they could get in the mystery box. And Peter Griffin goes, The boat is a boat, but the mystery box could be anything. It could be a boat. We'll take the mystery box. And that's basically what we're sitting down and hoping.
Casey
right
Bratcher, honey, it could be a fucking boat.
Yeah. Yeah.
So let's just move off of Sweat just for a couple of minutes. Now, what is next? They're saying that San Francisco and Buffalo are the leading people in the clubhouse, leading teams in the clubhouse to try to acquire Jaylen Johnson. Cars, I'll start with you, and then Ivan, you can go after. Do you think they move him? Do you think it's a second-round pick that's going to replace the outgoing one? Essentially, this is what they did with the Roquan deal. They acquired one and traded one. This would be a little bit different the way that this one worked, but what do you think?
So I don't think so. I think so. If we rewind real quick, so I'm going to do like a 2-minute diatribe here. The Bears offered Roquan Smith a deal.
Yep.
Roquan wouldn't take it. He wanted more money. The Bears allowed him to search out a team, and Baltimore said, we will meet his contract requirements, so we will trade for him. And that is in part why we got a second-round pick for Roquan Smith, not playing a premium position at inside.
Real quick, there is some, not Bears so much, but Ian Rappaport is reporting the Washington Commanders may not be done. They are still taking calls on number 2 overall pick Chase Young.
That's insane.
Yeah.
That's insane. But so the only reason Roquan moved is the Bears said, listen, we can't come to an agreement on your contract. Go search out a trade. If you find a trade partner that is willing to pay you what you think you're owed, we will make a trade work as long as they give us the value. That's exactly what's happening here with Jaylen, because what we've heard a couple different times this morning from a couple different sources has been the money that Jaylen wants is way above what other teams are willing to pay. So if you look, I think we've always used the Trayvon Diggs contract,
right?
And he's not a Trayvon Diggs. Trayvon Diggs got 16.25 basically for this year. So what they've done is they've made him some sort of offer, and from all appearances, the agent brought it back, and Jaylen said, "No, I want more." So the Bears have said, "Fine, go make yourself available around the league. If you find a team that is willing to pay you what you think you're worth, we will make the trade." I don't think he's getting moved because from all appearances, the folks that want him don't have that type of capital to pay. Like San Francisco doesn't have that much money because, they just paid Joey Bosa all that money. So I think this is just a way that good teams do things. And I'm not saying that we're a good team. I'm just saying this is the way that you do this, in which you look at and say, Jaylen, we're willing to pay you 14. You want 18. Go see if you could find a team that will pay you 18. If you do not, here's the $14 million a year contract that you can sign. And I think that's really where he is. So I don't think he's going to get the amount of money that he thinks he's worth.
Yeah, and I mean that's a great point. And if that comes to be what happens, that's a major play by Ryan Poles, where they've looked at the market, looked at the player, and said, I don't, this is the thing. People, and I know this is probably going to open up Pandora's box in the comments and everything, because I sent out a tweet earlier. Roquan Smith from Bears fans was all, oh, Roquan needs to be, respected more, and the national media is disrespecting him. The absolute second he got traded out of Chicago, he got pushed up on top of Mount Everest in terms of national media and instantly became, a top 2 linebacker within the NFL. And yes, I understand Roquan Smith is a good, very good linebacker. Roquan Smith hasn't really changed with what he's doing. I know, Cars, you have the numbers on that. And that's not a diss to Roquan, but he's been perched up because he's in Baltimore now. The same way this morning was when I woke up and people are calling Jaylen Johnson an elite cornerback. He is not an elite cornerback.
Far from it.
Never been an elite cornerback. And this is what drives me nuts is there's no middle ground with anybody. You either suck or you're an all-pro. You're either a malcontent or you're a generational prospect in the draft. There's never any middle ground. If the Bears are offering 14, Jaylen Johnson wants 23, and you should give it to him because he's a team leader. Well, he's missing games every year. He doesn't take the ball away. Did Roquan Smith take the ball away enough in Chicago?
Has he forced a fumble yet in his Baltimore career? The answer is no. And just to kind of add to that, don't compare Roquan, who was a will here, to Edmonds, because the will is the premier position. But since this season, Roquan has 82 tackles, 5 passes defended, 0 turnovers, either forced or recovered, 1.5 sacks, 3 tackles for loss, 3 QB hits. TJ Edwards, 85 tackles, 0 passes defended, a forced fumble, a fumble recovery, 2 sacks, 4 tackles for loss, 4 quarterback hits. You're getting the same information, the same performance out of a guy, and you're paying, I think, TJ Edwards $8 million less per season than you're paying Roquan.
Right.
I love Roquan,
and that goes
he's
back.
Not that dude.
That goes back to the deal. If you break it down with the compensation that you acquired in the Roquan Smith deal, and considering salary cap and all of that, you got Tremaine Edmonds, you got TJ Edwards. You can even put Sanborn's contract in there. You're still not there. You got a 2nd round pick, which ended up being Javon Dexter, a 5th round pick that ended up being Tyler. Was that Tyler Scott?
Yes.
And I forget who was the special teams / linebacker that they had. Klein, AJ Klein.
Yep.
He was in the deal also. They kept him for like a game or two. But I'll tell you right now, and people can call me crazy, I make the Roquan deal again.
Yeah.
Even being able to look back all fucking day.
You have to. Someone had said, like, look at what Poles has done. He traded Roquan. He wants to trade Jaylen Johnson. He tried to trade Tevin, which I've never heard any confirmation of. And, he's ruined Justin Fields. So he's done this to your 4 best players. It's a problem with your roster construction if your 2 of your 4 best players are a cornerback and an inside linebacker. That's just a poor roster at that point, and it's why we're here. You build through the trenches. He's obviously did a lot this last offseason with defensive tackles that will be here for years. Sweat will be here for years. We've done this on the offensive line now. He's building through the trenches and trying to build this roster the proper way, instead of just assuming that like an off-the-ball linebacker and all these other things are going to be where our premium positions are.
Yeah, Dom, you don't want to see that, because
I think
it would be.
I think
yeah, that would be absolutely horrific.
He's not a DN. Not a DN. But no, I agree with Cars. Yeah. I agree with Cars. He just hasn't done enough. There's not enough production for me to think you're elite. Does he do a good job? Yeah, and like Shane said, he's a middle of the pack, decent cornerback that could really help a really good team, right? If the Bears were a really good defense, why the hell would you trade Jaylen Johnson? He fits, he helps, but we're not. So I just feel like Jaylen thinks of himself highly, which is great, but you're shooting for the stars and you're not being realistic about who you are as a player. You haven't done enough production-wise for me to go ahead and give you elite type of money.
And I think that's a great way to put it, because if you look at the cornerback market, right, and just so you for the next kind of average year, if you look at 2024, you've got your top quarterbacks are Jair, Denzel Ward, Marshawn Lattimore, Marlon Humphrey, Trayvon Diggs, Jalen Ramsey, Xavier Howard. That's your 8, and Tre'Davious White. Those are your top 8. There's 17 million and above. You get to that next level, which is where I think Jaylen is more likely. You have J.C. Jackson, Carlton Davis, Darius Slay, Jamal Dean, all of these different places. you quickly drop to 14 million a year for those guys. That is the tier that Jaylen is in. So it should be around a 14 to 16-ish $1 million deal that you pay for. If he gets more than that, it's a little bit of an overpay, but I think he's seeing that's kind of his value is in that 12 to 14-ish million range. And I think there's no shame in it, and try to get as much as you can. But for a dude that misses on average 4 games, 25% of the season with injuries, trying to pay him more than $14 million a year is not really good investment.
Here's some updated numbers on Montez Sweat and his career, just in case anybody missed it. He's played in 67 out of 67 games, 35.5 sacks, 47 tackles for loss, 85 quarterback hits, 9 fumbles forced. He's also played in a 3-4 as an outside linebacker and a 4-3 as a defensive end and base. Like I said, it makes complete sense. And honestly, I'll just be honest, I make the trade for either of the ends. That's where I was.
I think you had to. You were again, you didn't have one. One wasn't coming in free agency or the draft. So you had to go for certain. So you had to go do this move.
And it gives you control. You know what I'm saying? You have control of the player, right? He's under your roof. So there's no and like I mentioned before, obviously I think that there was some type of a agreement or some type of some conversation that started prior to the contract talks, that if they're going or not going, I don't know what, but you had to make this move. It was necessary. There was no getting around it. And I feel like if you were going to wait, you would just be setting up for disappointment. Then you have to bid against other teams. So going ahead and getting ahead of the game and saying, hey, we're going to go ahead and control the player. He's going to help us continue to build this defense and produce. He's already your best pass rusher by far. Why not go ahead and see what we can work out with, throughout this season? And maybe
here's something that should make everybody feel better. That the Bears blog hates the trade.
Oh,
that
good.
should make everybody feel better.
Why? No, then because he does it. No football. He knows poetry.
He's trying to make sense of how a 2-6 team is a buyer at the trade deadline. I mean, because that's how the NFL works. Completely.
You can't sell everybody. I mean, I know we're talking about JJ and not bringing him, but you have to add.
How do you build a team when you trade a player, and then you're against acquiring talent at a absolutely critical position?
And by the way, he's one of 7 players in the league with at least 5 sacks the last 5 seasons. Only Garrett, TJ Watt, Khalil Max Crosby, Brian Burns, and Chris Jones meet that criteria. That's a pretty good list. Mm-hmm. That is a very good list of people. And the only reason it's 5 and not higher is because of the 1 year that he got dinged. Otherwise, it's 7.5 sacks easy every year.
So real quick, just so everybody understands, and the way that this is going to work, the Bears agree even before the trade is agreed upon. The trade is not made, like Carr said, unless when the Bears talk to the reps of Montez Sweat and to Montez Sweat, the parameters of any compensation package going to Montez Sweat, there's a 99% probability that they have been agreed to in principle. You cannot announce any of this. We know that the trade has been agreed upon. The Bears cannot come out and say that we've made a trade for Montez Sweat. Montez Sweat has to be in the Bears facility. He has to pass a physical, and that's when all of this will go down.
And
honestly, just remove your worry about a contract extension. That stuff, it's honestly a foregone conclusion. You are not investing a second-round pick into an impending free agent when you have $110 million in cap space without a financial package being agreed upon. It's done.
Well, and just to put in again, so last year at the trade deadline, we moved Roquan. He didn't sign his extension until January 11th of this year, right? So just because it doesn't happen very quickly doesn't mean that it's not agreed to or they're not going to. So don't panic if it doesn't happen. Roquan got traded 3 months later, 4 months later, he got his extension. It's going to happen. You don't make this move unless you're willing to do that.
Yeah, he's going to be a Bear in 2024. Just rest easy on that. I would be absolutely floored if that was if the Bears made a trade.
Uche wouldn't surprise me now, and getting another guy that's a lower value. I don't think Chase Young. No, I don't. I think we could close the door on that conversation. But I don't necessarily think that they're done. I don't think that Dominique Robinson. I think we could kind of say at this moment is done. As a
that
Bears.
Project. For them too, because he didn't even dress, right?
He did not.
Sunday night. So that
he hasn't played in 2 of the last 4.
Yeah.
Has only had 1 QB hit this season, a half sack, right? So they would.
And please, fans, again, please pump the brakes on calling him a massive bust. He's a 5th round project that has never been in a position consistently. He's been a wide receiver. Wasn't he a quarterback when he originally started? So he's bounced off that. There's no such thing as a massive 5th round bust. You saw a guy with some traits, you liked it, you thought you could develop him. It hasn't worked out. But so we're just about at 1. I know Phil was going on his lunch break at 1. He wanted to chime in real quick on it, but
I'm gonna have to pop off because I have to go in a little bit. Halloween party today.
Yeah, so that's why you got that fresh cut, looking all.
I got to wear a haircut, but sorry if the reflection off of my 5 head.
Yeah, I got in trouble for your label in the comments. They were throwing me under the bus, cars.
No, I'm the one that wrote that. Please understand. I understand.
I would.
If I
never.
could fit more than 4 fingers, it's a 5 head. Okay, I understand how that works, but. Cars, appreciate it. I'm glad you could hop on with us. Have fun with the girls and tell Maisie to go shit in a hat. Oh, she is, by the way, because of the intro.
Yeah.
Every Friday morning shows up to school strutting, going, I was on YouTube again last night. Yep. Everybody, who's the woman? And it's we have created a monster, so I appreciate it.
Absolutely. So
talk to you guys.
All right, bro. Later.
All right, guys.
So, Mr. Ivan, I guess I can share with everybody when I reached out to you about the pop-up show. I thought it was kind of funny. I'm like, hey, you home? Yep. So we're gonna do a pop-up show and talk about the Sweat trade. And he's like, wait, Sweat got traded?
I was trying to chop up like stuff for tonight's show, and I wasn't paying attention to the current events.
Geez, I wonder what you're going to talk about tonight. Now we need to change that rundown for sure.
For sure. Yeah.
No, I honestly I understand people's angst and worry, and I don't think it's anything like the Chase Claypool trade. I think it's completely different because you have a guy that is a proven NFL player, a consistent player year after year. Chase Claypool, speaking of player, who's this guy?
Can you hear me?
Did you put that graffiti on that building while you were waiting in the green room back there?
Yeah.
Nice.
Can you hear me with the shrimp and the lobster tails you and Ivan sent? Cars left me?
He is volunteering at Maisie's and his daughter and Aubrey's school.
I wanted to say hi to him.
Oh yeah, he literally just bounced. I don't know, 2 minutes ago, a minute and a half ago. So
so I haven't heard you guys talking. So I really
well put your thoughts out there, and if we think you're a fucking idiot, we'll let you know. Go ahead.
Well, first, it's a good day. It's a big need, obviously. Going back to the holy trinity that I always refer to: quarterback, pass rusher, left tackle, and clearly, guys, I mean, this is an enormous upgrade. A guy, I know he's averaged at least, what is it, 5, 6 sacks a season. He's consistent. The thing I like about him, and I liked about him coming out, is he's understanding, like Mac was, and I guess Robert Quinn. When you're sacking and you're coming down on the arms and you're stripping that football out. So I don't know how many fumbles forced he has, but I know he's a threat, a longer defensive end that has a lot of tools in his box in regards to getting to the quarterback. So listen, for a second round pick, Shane, you know the Bears, what do they have? 2 second-round picks?
No, not this year. They have 1 second rounder. 2025, they have 2. They have theirs and Carolina's. But Phil, like I said, I'll let you get back to your point. I think what is very important, the day's not over yet. The trade deadline's not ended yet. So depending on what happens with Jaylen Johnson, you could replace that too today.
Exactly.
Jaylen Johnson deal. You have 2 first rounders. You move anywhere off of those first 2 picks, even if you move down 2 slots. Part of that compensation that you're getting back is a 2024 second rounder. So I understand.
Exactly.
I think 90% of the angst from people are just saying, "Oh, we gave up a 2 for Chase Claypool. This is going to be the same thing," and it's not the same thing.
It really isn't, because you're talking about an established finisher when it comes to the pass rushing position, and that's really what you fans really need to understand. The Jaylen Johnson thing, to me, I'm not paying him what he wants, because I don't think he has earned it, nor do I think he is an elite corner that he's being sold as. So you get out of that now when you have I know Terrell Lewis is hurt, but you have these 2 big, rookies coming in. And is this true that JJ is gone? I just saw the comment.
Yeah.
So you're getting a 3rd round pick, or is that a fake?
It's a whoever posted that read a fake Ian Rappaport account.
Okay, but that's where I think, the kid's requesting a trade. You've seen his energy for the last couple of years. Listen, I battle with you, Shane, a lot of the time, sometimes on the personnel, but you're right here. Second round pick, you're not going into the draft finding a quality starting defensive lineman this offseason in the draft. As many as there are going to be some nice players, you're betting on a quality starting pass rusher, a finisher, a young player. How old is he?
27.
26? 27. So there you go.
He'll be 28 for the start of next season.
I was with Shane talking on the phone. I was good with Young or Sweat. You get one of them, you're getting a starting defensive end for this defense that needs a pass rush. And going back to the Holy Trinity, I think fans have to embrace that, because you're not going. Look at Javon Dexter right now, a 2nd round pick. Is he making an influence? He's a couple years away from possibly. So that's what you're looking at in the 2nd round, is a possible, might possibly find. This is a known commodity. This is the kind of trade you do when
Do.
I heard it too, that you do during this time. So I love the move, and I feel like it was a necessary one. I mean, you and I laughed. We talked about it on BHL. Trevis Gibson, Lewis in the preseason showed more than the kid they picked up from Notre Dame and Robinson. I mean, he's been absent. Wasn't he a healthy scratch?
2 out of the last 3 he hasn't played. Yeah. So
exactly. So it's like, come on. Come on.
No, I get it, man, and you're bringing legitimacy to and somebody had asked, do you think he plays this weekend? He's playing this weekend.
Right.
Phil, talk to the fans, as a coach, when you're bringing in a pass rusher, you see quarterback, you go get quarterback. It can be that simple.
It could be situationally if a coach tells me, he's coming on, the only thing you could say is if he's anywhere injured that you might sit him out. Other than that, if he's healthy, he's out there situationally in third downs, understanding that he's going out there to rush the quarterback, like Shane said. See quarterback, get quarterback. It's as simple as turning to your teammate. All right, what's the play here? You're slanting in, or we're doing a TXT stunt, or we're doing this. Okay, all of it is seriously language learned in 20 seconds, especially at the defensive end position. For him, for this week, in situations, you have to get this football player on the field. I mean, he's a talented football player. Bears get him, second round pick. Shane, you and I talked about it on Keeping It 100. We don't want to give away any of those first round picks for a pass rusher.
Yeah,
and Ryan Poles did that and got his second round pick. This isn't Chase Claypool. It goes back to fans getting all anxious over guys that played at certain schools, at certain position. You can't draft a Ohio State quarterback. Well, that's not how it works. Just like this, second round pick, pass rusher, veteran, established finisher, guy who gets the football on the ground in sacks, creating short fields for the offense. Sign me up. And I know he's going to be a free agent, so people are going to get nervous. I don't know, if a lot of people know or you covered this, but agents are going to be speaking with the GM in the process of these conversations that have been going down. So they're going to say, well, what are we looking at here? Like, this is like a red carpet treatment for Ryan Poles and company, because now he's getting a new lease on life and an open conversation about his contract. So I'm sure Chase Young's agents, as well as Sweat's agents, were speaking with the Bears and came to some parameters and numbers for an extension that might get announced. And if not, you have the franchise tag
it's getting announced, Phil. Like I said,
okay.
He's got to get into Hallis Hall. And granted, Carr's made a great point. That Roquan got traded and they announced his extension not until January.
Exactly.
I think it gets done before then. Albert Breer is reporting that the Bears were down the road on a deal with Chase Young or Montez Sweat both.
That's probably what happened. Exactly.
And you're talking to the reps, like you said, Phil. The deal, my assumption would be, with my GM hat on, is the parameters of a deal are already agreed upon. None of that can be reported. The trade can't become finalized until he gets to Hallis Hall.
Exactly.
Passes his physical, all of that. Everything's got to be signed. Hey, something didn't show up in your physical that we're not happy with, and that would nix the deal. So you're not giving up a
second round
pick and saying, "Oh, go test the market because we don't believe in you." No,
right.
He's getting paid.
This is the red carpet.
He's getting paid.
And it's a new lease on football life for the guy, and that's how it should be. Just like the Roquan, I'm glad Carr's brought that up. Roquan and his non-representation was a difficult conversation because he's not represented professionally, and thus causing more drama, and they were able to get it done later. In this case, this is open door policy. I didn't know that Chase Young and Sweats, whatever has been reported by Ian Rappaport, you said. So it goes along the lines of good business at these moments where these trades are announced. The compensation's usually the first thing announced, and once it's finalized, to Shane's point, contract numbers get revealed and people overreact or whatever.
Just real quick, let me play. This is Jordan Schultz, the insider from Bleacher Report, talking on the Bears deal and about a potential Jaylen Johnson trade.
84.4 coverage grade this season. He ranks third best in PFF. And I can tell you that in terms of Jaylen Johnson, the young corner with the Bears, it really, Buffalo, San Francisco, Philadelphia, and Pittsburgh, those are the four most likely suitors. Jaylen Johnson has been really, really frustrated with the lack of an extension that he believes he deserves. It would take about $15 million per season to make Jaylen Johnson one of the top 10 cornerbacks that I think he is. And certainly at this point in his career, second round pick out of Utah, he has become one of the premier young corners in the league. So again, Jaylen Johnson, if you're looking for a trade suitor, it's probably either Buffalo, Pittsburgh, Philadelphia, or San Francisco. And it will be a big asking price, but they have made zero progress on an extension. He certainly wants one, deserves one. And it looks like Chicago potentially getting Montez Sweat and potentially moving on from Jaylen Johnson.
So there you go. You're ushering out a pick, bringing in a pass rusher, and bringing in another pick. Listen, Jaylen Johnson wasn't drafted by this regime, Phil. We've talked about it on TTNL forever. And what did we always maintain? Jaylen Johnson is probably going to price himself out of the range that the Bears see him as. That doesn't mean that he's not a good cornerback. He's a good cornerback. Is he elite? No, he's not. He's not an elite cornerback. He's got 3 interceptions in 3.5 seasons. That's not elite. Can he be better? Yes. Another thing nobody talks about, this kid has had his shoulder redone 3 times. He's missed games every single year in the NFL. Are you going to...
He's not a quality tackler.
Yeah.
For the PFF grades, Shane, sorry to just piggyback on you. I don't know how you feel, Ivan, but his PFF grades say one thing, but in the game, you look at situations, he's out of place a lot. Maybe, I believe he's a better fit as a press man guy, asked to get on. You know, when Eberflus last year did ask him to do that, we saw good games from him. But when you're in this kind of defensive philosophy and you have this kind of arrogance, we'll say, and there's nothing wrong with that, but you haven't earned it. You become a distraction.
Real quick, there is an update here. The Bears and the Falcons were both hot on the trail for Montez Sweat.
They had 2 pass rushers, Montez Sweat, Chase Young, 2 former first-round picks in the final year of their contracts. They knew that if they keep on losing, they knew they can't pay both.
Well, I think it's all.
They're going to have to make a decision.
It's all common, but yeah, I mean, and this is what you want, and this is what Chicago wants in any Jaylen Johnson deal. You don't want a deal, and you don't want to have one team come to you and say, "Hey, we're interested in Jaylen Johnson." You want Buffalo, and if you notice that, what are all those
Steelers, 49ers, Buffalo, and what was the other one? Philly.
Yeah, so you look at Philly and San Francisco, and what are they both going for? They're both trying
Super
to acquire
Bowl
assets because they're Super Bowl contenders. You want these guys bidding after one. You know, I don't want Philly getting him. You know, so I'm going to up the ante a little bit. This is what you want. So.
Get a 2nd-round pick and maybe a center.
Yeah, we'll see. I would assume it's probably going to come back to draft picks, you know, like a 2nd and a 5th, kind of like how the Roquan deal was. We'll see, but yeah, no, it's going to be interesting.
So the Bears compensation straight up 2nd-round pick, boom, that's it.
2024. Yep, that's what's being reported. Originally, people had said they thought maybe it was going to include a 2025 second, but it's the 2024 second rounder, which right now would be the 35th overall pick.
And listen, he's worth it, man. I'm serious. You got to get the pass rush. Bears obviously lack it, and when you're building a football team, you build the lines, and this is a testament to that. So, especially on the pass rush side, if you're late tuning in or new to TTNL, we have always talked about the football holy trinity of quarterback, pass rusher, offensive tackle in that order. And that's how you should build your football team. The Bears, the Dominique Robinson experience has failed.
Yeah, just real quick, let me address George here. George, we talked about this earlier. The issue with waiting is if you can acquire his services, let's just say 18 million a year. You put a player like this on the open market where there's no draft pick compensation involved and it just becomes a financial package. There's a lot of teams that have a lot of cap space in the NFL. Then you end up paying a guy that you could be paying 18, you end up paying 23, 24, $million a season. So that's now you control Montez Sweat.
Right.
Atlanta doesn't control Montez Sweat. Whoever else wants him doesn't control Montez Sweat. That's the name of the game. And if you're ranking, Phil, corner or pass rusher's winning out every
pass rusher makes the corner better. So the young corner that might need some grooming is going to be he's a second late. Well, a pass rusher that gets home, stop that second, and that's really what you got to do. That's what the Bears have lacked. I mean, they did go out and get Quinn and Mack. Quinn, unfortunately, was hurt, but you saw what Khalil Mack did in that first year with Vic Fangio, a competent defensive coordinator. You got the coach of the year, really, because Fangio was able to take that defense and really create turnovers, and violent pass rushing created those turnovers.
And they are premium positions, but there's a separator. It's just like if you could have it's just like going from pass rusher to quarterback. You're gonna rank the quarterback higher. Yes, they're all
exactly
premium positions. And you, in no world do you have corner who, by our assessment, and it looks like by the Bears' assessment, is not an elite corner. So that's pushing him down.
He's a good corner.
There's nothing wrong with that.
That's all. That's what he is. But to go in this, I don't know what the chat room's like, but to go in this level, I've heard some people call in on the radio like, oh no, you can't give away he's elite. I just don't see it. Honestly, on the tape, looking at it, I don't see an elite corner. Right. I see a guy that's very good, but Jeremy, he's not elite.
Jeremy, let me ask you this. Go look. The Washington Commanders always get a ton of respect because they have invested in the defensive line. Chase Young hasn't played in almost 2 years. The defensive tackle, Deron Payne, has 1 sack this year after he got paid. They're not living up to expectations. Jonathan Allen is a hell of a player. He's asked out in Washington. I don't think that they have any I don't think that they're going to trade him. Now, Ian Rappaport is reporting now that Washington is still active in trade talks on Chase Young. So it tells you a lot. I think Washington is in sell mode. I think they're in asset accumulation mode in terms of draft pick compensation. And I think that they want to reset everything. If you think that you're going to build a team around cornerbacks, you're doing it wrong. I don't know what to tell you.
Well, the Bears, they have good depth at defensive back. I don't see a big drop off, honestly, with this kid getting traded. I just don't. Terrell Lewis showed a lot. I know he's hurt. Obviously, Stevenson, the kid Joan, what's his name? The other Jones, Jaylen Jones, has had quality start. The kid Stroman, got an interception, hasn't really gotten a chance because of the starter. So you're looking at him in practice and you're seeing, is there a big giant drop off here in what we're asking them to do? Now again, we have shitty coaches, and this season we could see it firsthand, and they're asking them to do certain things that aren't very difficult to do. Cover two and stay in your zone. You try to get when the getting is good right now, and that's what I would do with Jaylen Johnson. The other kid is Blackwell. He's been hurt, but we had seen obviously his special teams ability. But Shane, you and I, when he got in there to start a couple games last year, Josh Blackwell was showing you a quality. Wait, you have something here. So those are like 5 names I've given you.
Right.
Not even Kyler Gordon, who's playing the nickel. That's why you got a plethora of young corners with talent. Get while the getting is good, and don't overpay for somebody who's outpricing their talents. That's a good move by the GM. Sorry.
This is what I'm saying, just real quick. Keenan Allen put on a clinic on Tariq Steele. You're talking about a rookie cornerback with Keenan Allen, who's been in how many Pro Bowls, and an elite level wide receiver. Yeah, it's gonna.
He did good against Devontae Adams the week before.
He did great against.
I mean, yeah,
great against Devontae.
That's the life of a rookie corner. They're gonna take their lumps. I mean, everybody wanted to praise Jaylen Johnson against Philly, and then they're like, "Oh, but he did give up 182 yards to AJ Brown." You know what I mean? It's
that was the game I was trying to think of. Yeah. I'm like, come on now. Where's Zorich when you need?
Like 11 receptions on 18 targets or something like that.
Yeah, exactly. He got 18 targets. He caught 11 for 180 yards, and people are like, "Well, he didn't score." Well, let's make a goddamn play. How about that? This guy, Shane, 3 interceptions. Ivan, 3 in his career in 3 seasons. He got 2 in a game. So if you think he's the top 3 corner in this league, then I don't know what to tell you. I don't see it. I see a good quality starter. Mm-hmm. Like, I'm old enough to remember Ttnl Wolford.
Right.
Ttnl Wolford was a freaking elite corner that really wasn't talked about enough. That was a showcase of somebody who was elite and disrespected. People around the league recognize him as a good corner, not an elite. Got to make turnovers to be elite. Jaylen is exactly where he is, and listen. Look at our what's his name? God, the safety we had last year. He's now with the 49ers. He goes into a different Gibson.
Yeah.
Goes into he looked like he was on 2 flat tires with us, right? Goes into a different defensive philosophy, more aligned with his skill set, that are asking him to do certain things that the Bears under this administration didn't, and you have a rebirth. Sometimes those things will happen. So maybe Jaylen goes to the 49ers, for example, and starts playing at a level where at Utah he was asked to play a lot of press man and take chances. Here, under this coaching staff, they probably are limiting him in that. And he's frustrated, so he doesn't fit. He wasn't drafted by this coaching staff. So, again, not to be the devil's advocate here, because I feel like this coach is going to be fired and a new coach, but I feel like for those of you hang on to this guy, he also has a tendency to be a problem off the field in regards to the culture that you're building, not a problem player. Let's just be clear. He's what do you call it? Not a he's more vocal in criticizing your philosophy, and as a coach, he might want him out of there. Or Ryan Poles wants him out of there now and before he gets his contract. That's another thing too.
Or they just simply want him at their price.
Right.
You know, we have a number.
He hasn't been traded yet, but
we'll see.
I'm thinking he's shooting for 18. Like that's kind of where I
that's
see
way too high.
Yeah, Trayvon Diggs is making 16.2 this year. And you're gonna go over that with Jaylen. You can't do it. But let's rip through some of these super chats. Mike, thank you. $4.99. Do you guys honestly care if we trade Johnson? I don't. Is he really that good, or is the rest of the secondary that bad? Hey, listen, you have no help in the front. Your job becomes harder when there's no pass rush in front of you. I get it. Is he elite? I have made that very, very known. I don't think he's elite. I think he's a good corner. And again, at my price, we'll talk. When you're talking potentially $20 million a year, no, that's a non-negotiable for me. Mo chimes in. If we keep Jaylen, I can see more interceptions coming for the secondary. Yeah, it's part of adding players in front of you. You know, it really is. Look at the way that things can change. Don't forget about the Green Bay game and the Khalil Mack debut. Don't forget Kyle Fuller. Game was over on a walk-off, essentially. Kyle Fuller catches that interception and doesn't, you know, he didn't fumble it, but he dropped the pass. And game would have been over. And then what happens? So yeah, thank you, Mo. Bears fan Goomba, thanks for the show, guys. Appreciate you. Appreciate you too. Shadow Boy chiming in. Rappaport reporting Young could be moved also. Yeah, I just the team that I don't want to see step up.
Trade Jaylen for Young.
Yeah,
well, get both their ends.
The team that if I was the GM of a team in the NFC North right now, and if I was the Detroit Lions, I would be on the phone trying to get Chase Young at a second round draft pick cost or whatever to pair with Aiden Hutchinson, just to create pure hell for everybody. But that's me. I mean, Atlanta could step up, so we could see that. Ethan Cox, $5. People calling Jaylen All-Pro, but I'm seeing some say Sweat is slightly above average. This is pure insanity. Thank you, Ethan. The cigar connoisseur. These meatball fans are crazy about JJ. Why? It's the same type of deal. Once everybody leaves Chicago, they're put up on a pedestal. Much like, I'm not saying that Roquan's a bad player, but Roquan for Baltimore is doing the same things that he did for Chicago. And if you want to say that he's the elite of the elite, I would disagree. Ryan Hopp, I swear we have the dumbest fan base. Listen, if you don't listen to Ttnl, you're dumb. So I agree with you there. D. Levine, Valus Jones for a third, only in Chicago.
I wish we could get it there.
And I have no idea. That's the thing with Chase Young, is physical, and that's been the word that, you know, when you tear your ACL and your patella tendon, and you're as young as he is, that's not just a minor injury. And in ACLs, people come back from them all the time, but everybody is different.
And you've seen how they got scared with Larry Ogunjobi when he came in.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah. JJ's the only leader. I'm not sure where you get that from. If you want to talk about who the biggest leader is, let me ask you this, Nino. Did he get voted on by the players as a captain? Was he named a captain? Jaylen Johnson? I don't think he was.
I don't think so.
I know Tremaine Edmonds never played here before, and he was voted as one. He was also voted as one in Buffalo as a 20-year-old on a veteran-laden defense. So I think that part is made up. I'm not saying that he's not a good guy and players don't love him. That's no reason to overpay for a guy. That's what I would say.
Yeah. Obviously, you have the changing of the guard with Edwards and Edmonds in there. And the inside backers, I think they're more leaders, especially Edwards running down the field with Kyler Gordon. to celebrate a turnover in a loss. That's leadership there. I'd be more than willing to bet that Jaylen Johnson would be running down there celebrating down 23 points, recovering a fumble. That's not leadership, Nino. I'm just honest. There's nothing on tape that I could say has said what PFF is trying to report. He's a good corner to get. This is a guy that's going to want extreme money and be overpaid for his play. And you strike when the iron is hot there. And now's the time. You trade that kind of guy. And you have a ton of young talent there. I don't see the big drop-off. I really don't. I love the Sweat move. Hopefully they do trade Jaylen Johnson. Recoup a 2. I would like to see both Commanders ends come over here. That would be hilarious.
You haven't noticed Tremaine Edmonds? It's had interception in 2 out of the last 3 games. I don't know. Maybe you're just not watching the right team. And again, like we said, you add some horses on the defensive line. Linebackers' jobs get easier. Corners' jobs get easier. Like I said, my guess would be Richard Lopez thinks that Roquan Smith is the best linebacker in the NFL also. But we'll see.
Well, I love you guys. I got to bounce.
Yes.
But I wanted to jump on with you. Big day for the defensive line. Do they? No, I don't think they will.
The Minnesota Vikings have just made a move at quarterback. They have for
Case
Arizona quarterback Joshua Dobbs is now
their starting quarterback.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So, and
I mean, good for Josh Dobbs, I guess. But
yes,
Mike Lombardi, everybody's favorite, is currently on Twitter holding session, eviscerating the Chicago Bears for the trade, saying that the trade takes them out of the quarterback market in the NFL draft. But oh yeah, by the way, we also own Carolinas, so this is the same guy that drafted.
This guy's the dumbest
this is the same guy that drafted Johnny Manziel. So bravo, you fucking genius. So
I'll see you later.
Yeah, we're gonna get out of here.
Hi, Ivan.
Yeah.
All right, Phil.
I'm not sure if anything else breaks. If I'm gonna be around here, I gotta head out real quick and go pick up my kid and then head to my daughter's Halloween parade. Fun for everyone. So, Ivan, I think we're gonna wrap it up here.
Sounds good.
Stay tuned to TTNL. I know. Talk about your show tonight, Ivan.
Yeah. Another Bear show tonight, 7:30 Central Time, 8:30 Eastern. Gonna be talking. I mean, obviously, we're gonna be talking the trade, but I'm also gonna recap the mess that was Sunday night's game and preview the Saints game and just really get into what the hell I feel like has been going on with this Bears team. So a lot more Bears conversation.
Absolutely. All right. Appreciate everybody showing up on short notice, but that's kind of the way that we work here at TTNL. But other than that, we're gonna get out of here and bear down. About 2.5 hours left in this NFL trade deadline. Stay tuned and buckle up, and we'll see what happens next. Appreciate you guys. We'll see you tonight.